It was a calm afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The sun was shining gently and a soft breeze made the leaves on the trees sway in a relaxed rhythm. People were going about their normal routines. Some were jogging, some walking their dogs, and others were just sitting on benches enjoying the peace of the day. In the middle of this quiet scene, Claire was outside sitting in her wheelchair. She was 7 months pregnant and had decided to take a short ride around her neighborhood to enjoy the weather and get some fresh air. Her service dog, Max, walked beside her, keeping a close eye to make sure she was safe. Claire had always been cautious, but she loved being outside. She liked to feel the sun on her skin and the wind in her hair. It made her feel alive, even when her body felt heavy from the pregnancy. She moved slowly along the sidewalk, waving at neighbors who smiled back warmly. Everything seemed normal and peaceful until she reached a small parking lot near a local convenience store. Unbeknownst to Claire, there was a small altercation taking place. A man was arguing loudly with someone else, and the commotion caught the attention of Officer Daniels, who was patrolling the neighborhood. Officer Daniels was known for being strict and quick to act. He had been on edge lately because of minor disturbances in the area, and he had been told to be vigilant. When he saw the argument, he rushed over, ready to assert control. Claire had just started turning the corner to get back to her street when her wheelchair accidentally rolled a little too close to the edge of the parking lot, near where the argument was happening. Max barked once, sensing tension, but Claire did not notice because she was focused on maneuvering her chair safely. Officer Daniels, seeing Claire near the scene, misinterpreted her presence. He thought she might be involved or that she could be in danger, and he acted quickly without taking a moment to assess the situation properly. In a split second, he reached out and shoved the wheelchair. Claire felt herself tipping over. Max barked frantically, jumping around trying to protect her, but he was too small to stop the fall. Claire screamed, the sound sharp and full of panic. People around rushed to help. Someone grabbed the wheelchair and others tried to calm her down. Her hands were shaking as she tried to steady herself, and her heart pounded in her chest. The fall was terrifying, and she felt a sudden sharp pain in her side. She gasped for air and felt the panic rise, worried not only for herself but for the baby growing inside her. By this time, Ryan, Claire's husband, had just returned home. He was usually away for long hours because of his work, but today he had a rare day off. He heard the commotion from inside their house and ran outside to see what was happening. He saw Claire on the ground and his heart stopped. His training kicked in and he immediately assessed the situation. He recognized Officer Daniels in the crowd and his anger rose. He stayed calm outwardly, but inside a storm was brewing. Seeing his wife, who was supposed to be safe, hurt and shaken, ignited a protective fire in him that he had never felt so strongly before. Ryan quickly pushed through the crowd to get to Claire. Kneeling beside her, he gently held her, asking if she was okay. Her breathing was heavy and tears welled up in her eyes. She tried to speak but could only manage a few shaky words. Ryan's presence calmed her slightly. He stroked her hair softly, whispering reassurance, making sure she knew she was not alone. People in the neighborhood were staring, some taking out their phones to record what had happened. The videos would later circulate online, but in that moment the focus was on Claire. She was still scared, trying to understand how an officer, someone meant to protect people, could have done this. Officer Daniels stood nearby, looking tense. He realized that what he had done had consequences, but he tried to keep his composure. The adrenaline from the altercation kept him stiff, and he didn't know how to respond to the growing crowd. Neighbors gathered around, offering help. One woman brought a blanket to cover Claire. Another held Max so he wouldn't get in the way. The collective concern of strangers brought a small measure of comfort to Claire, but it did little to soothe the shock. She felt vulnerable, exposed, and angry all at the same time. Her mind raced with questions about safety, fairness, and justice. Ryan, being trained in high-stress situations, kept a careful eye on Officer Daniels. He did not want to escalate the situation further in public, knowing how quickly things could spiral out of control. But he also understood the seriousness of what had happened. He made a mental note to document everything, knowing that evidence and facts would matter more than emotions in the coming hours. Emergency services were called, and an ambulance arrived quickly. Paramedics checked Claire over, making sure she and the baby were okay. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries, but the scare was enough to leave Claire shaken. She was helped onto a stretcher and secured safely, with Ryan staying close by, holding her hand and whispering words of comfort. As the ambulance drove away, Ryan's mind raced. He knew he would have to handle this carefully. He needed to ensure accountability while keeping Claire safe. The incident was serious, and the implications were bigger than he could have imagined in that moment. Officer Daniels stayed behind, facing questioning from his peers and some neighbors. The initial shock had given way to tension and unease. Everyone present understood that this was not just a simple accident. That evening, Claire rested at home, still trembling from the experience. Ryan sat beside her, quietly making sure she had everything she needed. He knew that beyond the physical safety, Claire needed emotional reassurance. The couple talked softly, recalling the event, processing what had happened and planning their next steps. Claire's friends called, expressing concern and offering support, helping them feel less alone during the ordeal. Ryan's thoughts, however, were already focused on what would happen next. He started to gather statements, reaching out to neighbors who had witnessed the incident. He reviewed the footage that people had recorded, analyzing every angle to understand exactly what happened. He knew that being calm and methodical was the only way to navigate this situation. Emotions were high, but evidence and careful planning would ensure that justice could be pursued. In the background, the neighborhood began to buzz with speculation. People talked about the incident in hushed tones, some outraged by the officer's behavior, others confused about how such a thing could happen. The tension in the area reflected a broader concern about safety and accountability, mirroring the growing national conversation about law enforcement and public trust. Claire, despite her shock, began to feel a small sense of empowerment. She knew that staying silent was not an option. She had survived a frightening situation, and now she had a chance to ensure that what happened would not go unnoticed. Ryan's support gave her strength, and together they began to prepare mentally and emotionally for what lay ahead. That night, as the neighborhood settled down, Claire and Ryan reflected on the events. They understood that this was only the beginning of a larger journey. It was a story of fear, courage, and the sudden challenge of confronting authority in an unexpected and dangerous way. Yet in the midst of fear, there was also determination. They knew they had to stand up, not only for themselves but for the principle of justice. They would face obstacles, scrutiny, and pressure, but they also had each other, and that bond was unbreakable. As they went to sleep that night, Claire with Max curled at her feet and Ryan keeping a vigilant watch. There was a quiet understanding between them. They were safe for now, but the fight for justice was just beginning, and both of them knew deep down that the path ahead would test their strength, courage, and unity in ways they had never imagined. The day after the incident, the neighborhood was quiet but charged with the memory of what had happened. People whispered as they walked by, some stopping to ask Claire if she was all right, while others offered quiet support from a distance. Claire was still at home, resting on the couch with her feet elevated. Max sat beside her, occasionally nudging her hand with his nose, as if to remind her that she wasn't alone. Ryan had spent the night reviewing everything he could find about the incident. He had gathered videos from neighbors, spoken to those who had witnessed it firsthand, and made careful notes about the officer's actions. Every detail mattered. As an FBI agent, Ryan knew the importance of building a strong and precise account of events. He also knew that the truth could be questioned, so he was meticulous about recording dates, times, and statements. Claire watched Ryan with a mix of admiration and concern. She knew he was determined, but she also worried that he was taking on too much, trying to handle everything at once. She reached out to hold his hand, a quiet reminder that she was there and that she needed him too. Ryan looked down at her, and for a moment the world outside their small living room faded away. He promised her silently that he would protect her and the baby, no matter what it took. As the day went on, calls began coming in. Friends, neighbors, and even a few strangers had seen the videos online and reached out. Some offered advice, some simply offered moral support, and a few warned them about the possible backlash. The incident had caught the attention of local media, and the couple could feel the eyes of the community on them. While this added pressure, it had also made them realize that their actions could make a difference, not just for them but for others who might face similar situations. Claire felt the emotional weight of what had happened more with each passing hour. The fear, shock, and anger bubbled under the surface, and she found herself needing to talk through every detail, reliving the moments of panic and confusion. Ryan listened patiently, never interrupting, always giving her the space to express herself. Sometimes words were not enough, and she would simply hold his hand or rest her head against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his presence. Meanwhile, Ryan was in constant communication with the hospital where Claire had been checked over. He wanted to ensure that every precaution was taken, and that medical records reflected the incident accurately. Even though Claire had no serious injuries, he wanted a professional record of the fall and the potential risk to the baby. It was a precaution he knew could become crucial if the situation escalated legally. By mid-afternoon, Ryan decided it was time to speak with some of the witnesses directly. He went door to door, politely asking if they would share what they had seen. Most neighbors were eager to help. Some had recorded videos on their phones, while others had simply seen the fall and the officer's actions. Each account added more clarity to the picture, and Ryan carefully documented every statement. He remained calm and professional, aware that any hint of anger or intimidation could complicate matters. Claire spent the afternoon with Max, feeling a small sense of normalcy, as he padded around the living room and occasionally rested his head on her lap. She tried to focus on the small things, the things that reminded her of life before the incident. Ryan's presence was constant, and while he was busy managing evidence and witness statements, he always made sure to check in with her, bringing her tea, asking if she needed anything, and reassuring her that they were doing the right thing. As evening approached, the couple received a message from a local journalist who had seen the incident online. The journalist asked for a statement and expressed interest in telling their side of the story. Ryan carefully considered the message. He knew that speaking publicly could help apply pressure for accountability, but it also came with risks. After a long discussion with Claire, they decided to respond cautiously, providing a clear and factual account of what had happened without making exaggerated claims. The community's response began to grow. Neighbors started talking about organizing a meeting to discuss safety and accountability, inspired by the courage of Claire and Ryan in standing up to what had happened. This grassroots support gave Claire a sense of hope. She realized that even in the face of fear and injustice, people could come together to support one another. It reminded her that she was not alone and that her actions, along with Ryan's, could spark change. Ryan spent the night going over every detail again. He analyzed the videos, comparing angles and noting inconsistencies in the officer's account. He also reached out to colleagues for advice on the best approach to handle the situation without escalating tensions. His goal was not only to protect his family but to ensure that the truth was recognized and respected. During this time, Claire reflected on her own feelings. She felt a mix of vulnerability and strength. The incident had shaken her deeply, but she also realized that she had survived a frightening situation and could now contribute to ensuring that justice was served. She felt a growing determination to not let fear dictate her life or silence her voice. With Ryan by her side, she felt empowered to face the challenges ahead. Late in the evening, the couple sat together on the porch, watching the neighborhood quiet down. The lights of nearby houses flickered as families settled in for the night. Claire leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder, feeling a sense of peace amidst the chaos. They knew the path ahead would be difficult, filled with legal battles, media attention, and emotional strain. But they also knew that together, they could face whatever came next. The first night after the incident was difficult. Claire struggled to sleep, her mind replaying the fall and the fear she had felt. Ryan stayed awake with her, offering comfort and reminding her of the strength they had as a team. Max slept beside them, a small and constant source of reassurance. They understood that recovery was not just physical, but emotional as well. It would take time, patience, and support. In the days that followed, Ryan continued to gather evidence and witness statements. He remained in contact with the hospital, ensuring that Claire's health and the baby's well-being were continuously monitored. The couple also began planning for potential legal action, consulting quietly with experts to understand their options. Each step was measured, careful, and intentional, designed to ensure that they were prepared for any outcome. Claire, despite the trauma, found moments of normalcy in small routines. She enjoyed watching Max play in the yard, reading books, and speaking with supportive friends over the phone. Each day she grew a little stronger, a little more determined. She realized that while the incident had been terrifying, it had also brought her and Ryan closer together, strengthening their bond and their resilience. As the community began to respond more actively, the couple felt a growing sense of responsibility. They knew that their actions could influence not just their own case, but potentially inspire others to speak up against injustice. The incident, while traumatic, became a catalyst for awareness and change within their neighborhood. It reminded everyone that courage could come in many forms, and that standing up for what was right was never easy but always necessary. By the end of part 2, Claire and Ryan had established a small but determined support network. Friends, neighbors, and even some community leaders reached out, offering assistance, advice, and encouragement. The couple felt the weight of the challenge ahead, but also a sense of hope. They were no longer just facing the incident as individuals. They were part of a larger movement towards accountability and justice. Even though the emotional scars were still fresh, and the fear of what could come next lingered, Claire and Ryan found strength in each other. The incident had tested them, shaken their sense of security, and forced them to confront fear in a very real way. Yet it had also shown them the power of resilience, the importance of preparation, and the value of standing together in the face of adversity. With these lessons in mind, they prepared to face whatever the next day would bring, ready to continue their fight for truth and justice. A few days had passed since the incident, and tension in the neighborhood still lingered. Claire was beginning to feel slightly better physically, but the emotional strain weighed heavily on her. Every small sound outside the house made her flinch, a lingering fear that had been planted the day she fell. Ryan, on the other hand, was busy working tirelessly to ensure that all the facts were organized and ready. He had reviewed every video multiple times, spoken to every witness willing to share their account, and carefully documented every detail of what had occurred. His focus was sharp, his mind methodical, but inside a simmering anger never fully faded. Ryan knew that confronting Officer Daniels directly was a delicate matter. While his first instinct was to act forcefully, his training as an FBI agent taught him the importance of staying composed. Escalating the situation could make things worse for Claire and themselves. He spent hours planning the conversation, deciding what to say and predicting how Daniels might react. Every possible scenario was considered, from denial to aggression, and Ryan prepared to handle them all with calm authority. That afternoon, Ryan reached out to the local police department. He requested a private meeting with Officer Daniels, stressing the need for a professional and factual discussion. The department, aware of the incident's visibility and the potential for public scrutiny, agreed. The meeting was set to occur in a neutral location, away from the neighborhood and any witnesses, to avoid further public tension. Meanwhile, Claire struggled with her own feelings. She knew Ryan's plan was necessary, but she feared what might happen during the confrontation. She worried about the officer's reaction, the possibility of arguments, and even retaliation. Ryan reassured her, reminding her that his goal was clarity and accountability, not vengeance. He also reminded her that she was stronger than she realized, that facing fear did not mean she had to be fearless, but that courage was found in the act of standing up regardless of fear. When the day of the meeting arrived, Ryan and Claire drove together to the designated location. Claire stayed quiet in the passenger seat, gripping the edge of the door, her mind a swirl of anxiety and anticipation. Ryan reached over to squeeze her hand, giving her a brief smile. It was a small gesture, but it grounded them both, a reminder that they were a team and that they could face the situation together. The meeting room was simple and quiet. A table, a few chairs, and a sense of official neutrality set the tone. Officer Daniels arrived shortly after, appearing stiff and uneasy. He nodded curtly at Ryan and Claire, clearly aware that this was not a casual conversation. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every small movement seem amplified. Ryan began calmly, explaining that the purpose of the meeting was to understand exactly what had happened and to ensure that Claire and the baby were safe. He presented the evidence he had gathered: videos, witness statements, and medical records. Each piece of information was shared methodically, clearly, and without emotion. His voice was steady, his demeanor professional. He made it clear that the focus was on accountability, not personal revenge. Officer Daniels shifted uncomfortably. He glanced at the documents, then at Ryan, then at Claire. For the first time, he seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation beyond the immediate incident. Ryan continued, pointing out the timeline, the positioning, and the officer's actions that led to Claire's fall. Every statement was backed with clear evidence. There was no room for doubt or misinterpretation. Ryan spoke with authority but not hostility, presenting facts with precision that made it impossible for Daniels to argue without seeming evasive or dishonest. Claire, sitting quietly beside Ryan, watched closely. She was nervous but also determined to be present. She realized that while Ryan was leading the conversation, her presence as the person directly affected carried weight. She nodded occasionally, confirming facts or clarifying small details when Ryan prompted her. Each time she spoke, her voice trembled slightly, but she grew more confident with each word. The act of speaking, of participating, was empowering. It reminded her that she had agency, that she was not merely a victim, and that her voice mattered. Officer Daniels finally responded. He claimed it had been an accident, that he hadn't intended to hurt anyone, and that he had acted out of caution. Ryan listened quietly, letting him speak, then calmly addressed the inconsistencies between Daniels' account and the evidence presented. Each claim was met with corresponding facts: the videos, the statements from neighbors, and the medical assessment from the hospital. Ryan's calm and composed demeanor left no room for misinterpretation, and Daniels' defensiveness began to falter. The conversation was tense but controlled. Ryan's strategy was not to provoke anger, but to ensure understanding and accountability. He emphasized the consequences of the officer's actions, not as a threat but as a reality. The legal, professional, and ethical responsibilities that Daniels had failed to uphold. He highlighted the potential harm that could have occurred, focusing on the baby's safety and Claire's vulnerability. The words were measured, precise, and compelling. At several points, Officer Daniels' posture shifted, a visible sign of the tension within him. He realized that the incident was not simply a matter of routine protocol. It had larger implications. Ryan, recognizing this, maintained a calm but firm stance, allowing Daniels to see the gravity of his actions without escalating the confrontation into conflict. Claire noticed the subtle changes, the way Daniels' defensive energy softened slightly as the weight of the facts pressed down. She felt a cautious sense of hope that this meeting could lead to understanding and some measure of accountability. The meeting lasted for over an hour. Ryan remained focused, never allowing emotion to dictate the conversation, though internally he was acutely aware of the anger and protectiveness bubbling beneath the surface. Claire contributed when necessary, and each time she spoke, it strengthened her confidence. She realized that facing fear, even indirectly, was teaching her resilience. She could confront injustice without losing herself to rage or despair. As the meeting concluded, Ryan summarized the discussion, outlining the next steps for accountability and ensuring that proper procedures were followed. He made it clear that while the immediate confrontation was over, the matter would not end without appropriate review and consequences. Officer Daniels nodded, a mix of reluctance and acknowledgement in his expression. He knew the scrutiny was real, and the incident could not be undone, but he had been forced to confront the impact of his actions in a direct and undeniable way. Outside the meeting room, Claire and Ryan breathed a quiet sigh of relief. The confrontation had been intense, but it had also been productive. Ryan turned to Claire, holding her hand and offering a supportive smile. She felt a mixture of relief and lingering anxiety, knowing that this was only one step in a longer journey toward resolution and justice. Max barked softly at their feet, sensing the tension and the release that followed. On the drive back home, they discussed the meeting. They reviewed what had been said, what had been achieved, and what still needed attention. The conversation was practical and calm, focusing on next steps rather than dwelling on anger. They knew that the process ahead would require patience, persistence, and careful planning. Ryan continued to outline strategies, while Claire focused on her emotional recovery and ensuring that the baby remained healthy and safe. Back at home, Claire rested while Ryan continued organizing evidence and planning for further legal and administrative steps. The couple had established a rhythm, Claire focusing on healing and emotional strength, Ryan focusing on preparation and strategy. They supported each other, maintaining a balance between action and care, ensuring that neither was overwhelmed by the process. In the evening, Friends and supportive neighbors checked in. They offered encouragement, advice, and small gestures of support. Claire realized that her community was an unexpected but vital source of strength. The incident, while frightening and unjust, had highlighted the importance of connection, trust, and mutual support. It reminded her that she was not alone, and that facing injustice could be done with integrity, patience, and courage. By the end of the day, Claire and Ryan felt a cautious sense of progress. The confrontation had been difficult but necessary. It had forced recognition, established accountability, and set the stage for the next steps. While uncertainty remained, they had taken concrete action, and their partnership, resilience, and strategic approach offered hope. They knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but together, they were prepared to navigate the complexities of justice, responsibility, and community support. They ended the day quietly, knowing that even in the face of fear and uncertainty, they were stronger and more united than before. The following days were a whirlwind of activity for Ryan and Claire. After the confrontation with Officer Daniels, Ryan focused on ensuring that the matter was handled professionally and legally. He was careful to follow the proper channels, communicating with internal affairs, documenting every conversation, and ensuring that evidence was preserved. His meticulous approach reflected his experience and training as an FBI agent, but it was also a way to calm Claire, showing her that there was a structured plan to protect them. Claire, meanwhile, focused on healing, both physically and emotionally. She continued to rest, sometimes sitting quietly by the window with Max at her side, letting the light and warmth of the sun soothe her. She reflected on the events, thinking about how quickly her life had changed in one moment. The fear and trauma were still fresh, but she also felt a growing sense of determination. She realized that her experience could be a force for change, inspiring others to stand up and speak out in situations where power had been misused. Ryan spent long hours reviewing everything in detail. He analyzed the footage, examined witness statements, and cross-referenced everything with the hospital records. His goal was to ensure that the facts were indisputable. He also prepared for possible legal proceedings, understanding that a strong and organized presentation of evidence would be crucial. He stayed calm and deliberate, but the intensity of the situation was always present in his mind. The neighborhood buzzed with curiosity and concern. Many people had watched the videos online and were talking about the incident. The story spread quickly, and while some were outraged by the officer's actions, others questioned the situation, unaware of the full context. The attention added pressure, but it also emphasized the importance of clarity, honesty, and careful handling of the matter. Ryan knew that public perception could influence outcomes, so he worked to ensure that everything was communicated accurately. Claire received visits from friends and neighbors who offered support. They brought meals, checked on her well-being, and listened to her experiences. The kindness and concern reminded her that she was not alone. Each interaction gave her strength and confidence. She began to understand that her voice mattered, that her story could help others understand the importance of accountability and empathy in difficult situations. Ryan coordinated with internal affairs and other authorities to ensure that the officer's actions were investigated thoroughly. He emphasized the need for transparency and fairness while maintaining a focus on accountability. The department responded professionally, acknowledging the seriousness of the incident and the need for a complete review. This gave Ryan and Claire some reassurance, though they remained cautious, knowing that the process would take time. As the days passed, Claire began to regain her sense of normalcy. She resumed small activities like preparing simple meals, reading books, and spending quiet moments with Max. The support from Ryan and their community helped her feel safer. She also started writing down her experiences, not just as a record, but as a way to process her emotions. Writing became a form of therapy, helping her organize her thoughts and reflect on the resilience she had discovered within herself. Ryan remained vigilant, balancing his professional responsibilities with his dedication to Claire and the baby. He monitored communications, maintained organized records, and continued to speak with witnesses to ensure accuracy and consistency. Each step was calculated, designed to protect his family and prepare for potential outcomes. While the situation was stressful, Ryan's methodical approach provided a sense of stability and control. One afternoon, The couple received news from the hospital that Claire's pregnancy checkup had gone well. Both she and the baby were healthy, a moment of relief that eased some of the lingering anxiety. The news brought a sense of gratitude, reinforcing their commitment to focus on positive outcomes amidst the challenges they faced. It reminded them that despite the fear and uncertainty, life continued, and there was still much to be grateful for. The legal process began to take shape as Ryan worked with attorneys and advisors. They discussed potential outcomes, strategies, and the best ways to ensure justice. The focus was on accountability rather than revenge, understanding that fairness and truth would carry the most weight. Ryan emphasized the importance of patience, reminding Claire that the process could be slow but that each step was meaningful. He reassured her that together, they could navigate the complexities ahead. Throughout this time, Claire and Ryan also considered the wider implications of the incident. They recognized that it highlighted broader issues of power, authority, and responsibility. They spoke with community leaders and neighbors about safety and awareness, discussing how to prevent similar incidents in the future. Their conversations were thoughtful, focused on constructive solutions rather than anger or blame. This approach not only helped them cope, but also empowered them to make a positive difference. As the weeks went on, the community's response became more organized. Meetings were held to discuss safety, support for vulnerable residents, and accountability measures. Claire and Ryan's experience served as a catalyst for these discussions. People were inspired by their courage and careful handling of the situation, and the couple found comfort in knowing that their actions were contributing to meaningful change. Claire continued to reflect on her journey. She recognized her own strength and resilience, acknowledging that fear had been transformed into determination. She realized that being a survivor did not mean she was powerless. It meant she had the opportunity to influence outcomes, protect others, and advocate for justice. This insight gave her a sense of purpose, reinforcing her commitment to face the challenges ahead with courage. Ryan, too, reflected on the experience. He understood the weight of responsibility that came with protecting his family while navigating a complex system. He appreciated the importance of calm, deliberate action, and the impact of strategic thinking. He also recognized the value of emotional support, understanding that strength was not only found in professional skill, but also in the connection and trust between him and Claire. As Part 4 concluded, Claire and Ryan had established a balance between action and reflection, strategy and care. They had taken concrete steps toward accountability, built a network of support, and strengthened their own resilience. The incident had tested them in profound ways, but it had also revealed their capacity to face adversity with courage and integrity. They knew that the resolution was not yet complete, but they were prepared to continue the journey, guided by determination, compassion, and a commitment to justice. The days following the legal preparations were filled with a mixture of hope and tension for Claire and Ryan. Each morning began with checking updates, reviewing progress, and making small plans for the day, all while Claire focused on her health and the baby's well-being. Despite the lingering stress from the incident, they were determined to find a sense of normalcy, balancing the emotional weight of recent events with practical, everyday life. Ryan had made it clear that patience and precision were key. He continued to communicate with internal affairs, ensuring that every piece of evidence was organized and clearly presented. He also maintained contact with witnesses, keeping their statements secure and confirming that everyone was comfortable and accurate in their accounts. His calm, methodical approach gave Claire reassurance, helping her feel that things were moving in the right direction. Each day she found a little more courage to face the uncertainty ahead. Meanwhile, Claire found comfort in the small routines of home life. Max, always attentive, remained by her side, offering silent support with gentle nudges and warmth. She spent time reading, writing down her reflections, and speaking with friends who had been checking in constantly. Their support was invaluable, helping her process her emotions and reminding her that she was not alone. Every conversation, every message of concern, strengthened her resilience. One morning, Ryan received a call from the Internal Affairs Office confirming that Officer Daniel's case would proceed to disciplinary review. While the outcome was not yet final, this development marked a significant step. It confirmed that the system was taking the matter seriously, and it reinforced the importance of their careful documentation and strategic planning. Ryan shared the news with Claire, and though she remained cautious, a sense of relief washed over her. It felt like progress, a small but meaningful validation of their efforts. The couple also began receiving attention from local media. Reporters were interested in telling their side of the story, and Ryan guided Claire in responding appropriately. They focused on facts, emphasizing the importance of accountability and safety, and avoiding any exaggeration or sensationalism. By controlling the narrative with integrity, they ensured that their story would be understood clearly and fairly, without becoming a source of misinformation or conflict. Claire continued her recovery physically and emotionally. She paid close attention to her health, attending all prenatal checkups and taking gentle walks when possible. The incident had made her cautious, but it had also inspired a newfound determination to protect herself and her baby. She began to feel stronger, more confident in her ability to face challenges, and more aware of the importance of her own voice in advocating for her rights and well-being. Ryan remained vigilant, balancing professional duties with his role as a supportive partner. He spent long hours preparing documentation, reviewing statements, and coordinating with attorneys. Each step was taken with careful thought and intention, ensuring that every action strengthened their case while protecting Claire from additional stress. Ryan's dedication provided a stable foundation for Claire, allowing her to focus on healing and preparing for the arrival of their baby. As the weeks passed, the community's support grew. Neighbors and friends continued to offer encouragement, attend meetings, and discuss ways to improve safety and accountability in the neighborhood. The couple's experience became a focal point for constructive change, inspiring conversations about responsibility, empathy, and vigilance. Claire and Ryan realized that their actions had a ripple effect, encouraging others to speak up, stay aware, and support one another in moments of vulnerability. The disciplinary review for Officer Daniels was scheduled, and Ryan prepared meticulously. He organized all evidence, ensured witness statements were clear and consistent, and reviewed every aspect of the case. The goal was not to seek revenge, but to ensure that the officer was held accountable and that such incidents would be prevented in the future. Ryan's approach was firm, professional, and unwavering, reflecting his commitment to justice and the protection of his family. Claire attended the hearing with Ryan. Her presence was important, not just as a witness but as a symbol of resilience and courage. She spoke calmly, clearly, and with conviction, recounting the incident and its impact on her and her baby. Each word reflected her strength and determination. She emphasized the importance of accountability and safety, making it clear that the focus was on preventing harm rather than punishing anyone personally. The review concluded with the decision to suspend Officer Daniels and require retraining on proper procedures and the treatment of vulnerable individuals. While the outcome did not erase the incident, it represented accountability and a step toward positive change. The decision reinforced the importance of standing up for oneself and others, demonstrating that careful, deliberate action could influence outcomes and create meaningful impact. After the review, life gradually began to settle into a new rhythm. Claire focused on preparing for the arrival of her baby, while Ryan continued to manage the remaining administrative steps. The couple took time to reflect on the journey they had undergone, recognizing the strength and courage they had discovered within themselves. They had faced fear, injustice, and uncertainty, but had emerged more united, resilient, and determined. Claire's perspective on life shifted. She realized that fear, while natural, could be managed and transformed into action. She understood the value of support, community, and preparation. She had faced a moment of vulnerability and turned it into an opportunity for growth, advocacy, and resilience. Every small victory, from recovering emotionally to securing accountability, reinforced her sense of empowerment. Ryan, too, reflected on the experience. He appreciated the balance between professional expertise and personal dedication,